I work in an ice cream shop. It's a predictable and stable job. After I graduated, I stayed on for a few years as a manager. The shop itself is located on a small university campus, so we stay fairly busy even when it's cold outside. We have a huge bay window that looks over the street, which I guess is where my story really starts. I came into work today exhausted and irritated. My dog had been sick all night, so I had been up late with him. My shop owners were in the shop early, getting ready to go to a catering event. As I clocked in, my owner pointed out the window to the road. "Some guy's getting arrested," he said casually. I shrugged. "We're at a pretty major intersection. There's always someone who runs the light or makes an illegal turn. No car," the owner added. That made me curious. I watched over the register as 3 uniformed officers detained and searched a nondescript white male in a beanie cap and hoodie. After a while, they loaded him into one of the 3 police cars waiting on the curb and drove away. The remaining officers searched around the bus stop and the front of my store for a few moments and then left. That was the end of it. A few people came in and asked me what had happened. I honestly told them that I had no clue. I assumed it was something asinine like drugs or petty theft. After about 3 hours after the arrest, the police cars returned. They parked out on the front curb. This wasn't unusual. The restaurant next door lets cops eat free, so we have a lot of police vehicles around all day. But these guys were clearly not there for lunch. They got out and started searching the neighborhood, stopping people and asking questions. Eventually, some of them ended up in the parking lot behind my shop. I saw them out there when I went to toss some garbage in the dumpster. It was cold today, so we're slow but steady. I had only a few customers in the shop. I was talking to a regular when a police officer came into my shop. The look on his face told me he wasn't there for ice cream. He walked right past my regular and right up to me. "I'm gonna have to ask everyone to leave," he said in a low voice. I just nodded. The regular and I shared a confused look. The police officer turned and addressed my shop in a booming voice. "Due to an ongoing investigation in the area, we need everyone to leave immediately." My customers all gave me looks of pity and confusion, but left without complaint. The officer then turned to me and asked, "Do you have access to the basement out back?" I nodded. Our basement was where we kept our excess paper stock. We didn't go down there more than once a week. It had been about 4 or 5 days since I'd been down there. A few other police officers came in through the front door while I went and fetched the key for our basement. Once I gave it to them, I let them out the back and called my owners. They told me to sit tight and do what the police asked. The door to the basement is cellar style, a flat wood thing set into the ground. We lock it with a padlock. The damn thing is heavy as hell and sticks, so I had to help them open it. I've worked here long enough that opening it is second nature to me. Once open, there is a steep set of concrete stairs that lead into the basement. An officer pushed me aside and tried to open the door at the bottom. It is also quite old and sticks. Plus, our basement has been damaged in the flooding in a few weeks before, so I offered to help him. He gave me a look like he wanted to refuse, but stepped aside and let me get the door. While I fought with the door, the officer turned to address his SO standing at the top of the stairs. I caught them using words like confession and hiding place. Great, some druggie has been hiding his stash in the basement of my shop, just when I needed. I finally got the door open. I was struck at once by the smell. Normally, it smelled like molding cardboard and wet dirt. Now it smelled like a sewer had backed up, and also faintly of overcooked meat. I reached up and flicked on the light switch. Jesus Christ! The officer behind me yelled when we saw what was inside. At first I thought I was looking at a corpse. There, in the middle of the basement, was the torso of a human body, the head still attached. It was standing upright like a statue. There was a cloth wrapped around it like someone had tried to cover it up. The limbs were gone. Where the legs and arms had been were puckered red wounds. There was no blood, The chest and face were badly disfigured, looking like only so much meat rather than a human being. There was no way to tell if it was male or female. It was sitting in what appeared to be a pool of its own excrement. I took an unsteady step forward. The face moved, the jaw dropped, and the mouth flapped. A pair of impossibly bright blue eyes looked up at me. "Shit, it's alive," someone said. Maybe it was me. Someone called for an ambulance. Ignoring the stinking pool around it, I moved forward to it. Its eyes filled with tears and its face slackened with relief. It was trembling so hard that it started to tilt backwards. Without thinking, I jumped forward and caught it, lowering its head gently into my lap. While the police buzzed about, I held it in my arms. Its blue eyes never left mine. The mouth moved and a grating sound came out. I realized that it was trying to speak. I lowered my head to its mouth to hear better. "Sing?" I sat up and looked at it again. Its eyes were pleading with me, so I nodded. The mouth moved again, and I bent close to listen. Valley of the Flowers. I looked at it in disbelief. I knew the song. It was an old Irish tune. I'd never found sheet music or a recording of it. I only knew it because my grandmother from Ireland used to sing it to me as a child. So I nodded, and sitting in a pool of human feces with that thing in my lap, I sang. "In the valley of the flowers I shall lay my true love down. In the meadow, in the mountains, I will place her in the ground. In the shadow of the forest I will make for us a home, and by my hand a carving for her head I will make a stone. Lo, now that your pain is ending, see now, the dawn is near. In the valley of the flowers we shall sleep with no more fear." At some point it closed its eyes. I kept singing until the paramedics came and loaded it onto a stretcher and got out of the basement. Covered in dirt and stinking filth, I got up to go home. An officer stopped me and said something to me. Could have been thanking me or scolding me. I couldn't have told you what he said. In my heart, I knew that thing was dead. That was actually the most relieving thought. They haven't told me much. As far as I know, it's an ongoing investigation. They don't know how or when that thing got into our basement. The shop is going to be closed for a while, so I'm just home, thinking. The weirdest part for me is that song. It's not a common song. I haven't thought about it in years. But this last week, before the incident, it's been stuck in my head. I've even been humming it at work.